these truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
As a member of Congress, I get to have a lot of really interesting people in the office, experts on what they're talking about.
This is the podcast
For insights into the issues.
China, bioterrorism, Medicare for all, in-depth discussions.
Breaking it down into simple terms. We hold
these truths.
We hold these truths.
with Dan Crenshaw.
The Eagle has landed.
Streaming live from the Improv in Houston, Texas, courtesy of Live by Live and Podcast One. This is the Adam Carolla Show. Adam's guest today, U.S. Congressman Dan Crenshaw. We'll also talk to the president of the Houston Food Bank, Brian Green. Plus, performances from Graham Parker and John Hyatt. And now, such a pessimist, he sees today's socially distanced audience as half empty, not half full. Adam Carolla!
Thank you, guys. Well, we got a lot of heroes here tonight. Dan Crenshaw, hero, has joined us. I think we have a lot of first responders here tonight, so tip of the cap and a clappity clap for you guys. And when I say clap, I don't mean the venereal disease. I mean actual. Come on, anyone over 40 who remembers venereal disease is called the clap? So much nicer than herpes sounding. So we're going to pay homage to a couple of folks that have really helped out here, and then we'll go right into the show. First, we should bring up, let's see, I got the wrong card here. Let me make sure I got the right card. Oh, yeah, I got the right card. From the Houston Food Bank, Brian Green is here. Come on up, Brian. Well, socially distance, but well, I'm trying to, why don't you try into this microphone and just kind of tell us what the Houston Food Bank's all about?
Well, the food bank, normally we provide food assistance for families in need. It's just right now it's dramatically changed. It was, it's almost like a curtain dropping on the economy. And so we've been distributing about 1 million pounds a day.
Wow.
Through all these different site distributions. It's been a lot of work.
And all the money from today's show is going to the Houston Food Bank now. I've never been to a food bank. I've been to a drive-through bank. Is there a thing where like the drawer slides out and it's just filled with chili and you show up with your own ladle? Do people come to you, or are you bringing it to everybody?
So the food banks themselves are like distribution centers, so we don't actually serve people directly. We go work with all these different charities, mostly like church pantries that are doing the distribution.
Well, not only is the money that's been raised here today all going to the food bank, but I believe Tom Castillo, who's the manager here at the Houston Improv, is going to bring out a check, and I think we have a little matching funds situation. Tom, I don't know, Tom may be in the back firing employees right now. I heard him yelling at some folks. Tom, is that you, Tom? Yeah, come on up, because we have a presentation here for Brian. Oh, yes, we'll socially distance, but it's... This is a ceremonial check. Do not try to take this to a check cashing place and hammer this check, Brian. This is a ceremonial check. But yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
Yeah. I just want to say, first of all, thank Adam, because what he's done this week is incredible. I don't know if you guys realize, but he's donating all his money that he's made this week to the staff and to the food bank, okay? And, so let's give it up for Adam. Been in a comedy business for 30 years. I'm actually the owner, and not a lot of guys like this, okay? I know you guys know him. He's your guy. Really appreciate that. What I also want to tell you guys is we're matching what Adam's raised. So I think the total donation for today is $20,000. And so give it up again. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you guys. And Brian Green, Tom Castillo, you're doing the Lord's work. Thank you very much, and thanks for what you do. It is true that all the money I'm raising over this weekend is either going to the food bank or going to the folks who work here, the guys in the kitchen, the folks making the drinks and bringing the food. But I also got a haircut. And it was a $9,000 haircut, and we have to back that out. So... And I flew here privately, and I've had surf and turf for every meal. And again, we have to back that all out. So I'm going to need you to pass the hat so the servers could go ahead and contribute, because I got to be made whole before I leave. Thank you. You're all heroes. Dan Crenshaw, I saw him originally on Saturday Night Live, like many of you did, and I saw the way he handled that. And I just thought it was so graceful that you had a sense of humor about being the butt of a joke, and went on the show and showed that you could take a joke and then give some back. And why don't you talk about the mindset to that approach? You wake up Sunday morning, you find out that some scrawny kid's been talking shit about you, and your first reaction is what?
It's a good question. First of all, thanks everybody for being here and supporting the Houston Food Bank. Really appreciate that. And thank you for supporting Adam's private flights. It's LA, guys. They needed to come here. Welcome to Freedom,
oh my
by the
God.
way.
It was so weird the first night. I mean, after being in total lockdown, I mean, I've been living in a shark cage. LA, you want to go outside your house, they cut out leg holes in a shark cage, you pick it up, you can walk about, it's like Hell Week. It's like you carrying the raft in Coronado. You make it about 18 feet, you set it down, you're gassed out, your teammates are yelling at you.
It's tough. Neighbors are tattling on you.
We went out and had a steak and a martini on Thursday night, and I just couldn't believe it, because it's like the greatest thing ever for me is I work really hard, and then going out for a drink and a steak is the reward. And of course, in LA, there is no carrot at the end of the stick.
Yeah.
But they do have the stick.
Yeah. They'll get you, especially if you're surfing alone, because there's nothing more dangerous than a lone surfer.
Oh my God.
Out there, giving coronavirus to, well, I guess sharks. I mean, you brought up the shark cages.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, though, this happened so long ago. It's almost surreal to think about getting from there to here. And woke up the next day. I haven't watched Saturday Night Live Saturday night since I was in high school, but it was a staple of a lot of us growing up. I used to watch it back before Netflix and TiVo and all that. But the next day I get all these text messages from friends, and they're mostly making fun of me, like, they got you. Because it's the SEAL teams, right? These are the kind of people I'm with. So they love watching me just get raked over the coals. But they're also kind of pissed because they get to rake me over the coals. They don't like it when it's like some skinny comedian does it. And it was more annoying than anything else. It was lost on me at the time, or I was not aware at the time of the significance of that event for my own life yet.
For those of you who don't know what happened, Pete Davidson was just showing, he was contributing to SNL's news, and he was just showing pictures of politicians, mostly Republicans, and then sort of making jokes at their expense. And they put up a picture of you and said you looked like a
hitman in a porno.
A hitman in a porno movie.
Well, that wasn't the offensive part. That part makes you think. So you're like, what does that look like? There's a lot of questions that arise from that comment. That's not what made everybody mad. What made everybody mad when he kind of sort of apologized for it. I know, I'm sorry, he lost his eye in war or whatever.
Right.
And he said it like that.
Whatever.
And it felt a little bit like an ad lib. It felt a little bit kind of like an accident, but it's kind of like he meant it, and it made everybody really mad. And so the way I analyze this situation in my book is I said there was basically two ways this could have gone. And it was a perfect storm of events that allowed us to sort of make America feel good about it. But it could have gone much differently, because what normally happens in that situation is we unleash the outrage mob. And we just unleash the Twitter mob, and we'll get these guys. We'll get them good. Well, maybe we'll get them fired. Maybe we'll get them canceled. We'll get people to stop, advertising with them. And they were getting threats of that anyway, actually. And what would have happened? Well, Saturday Night Live probably would have backed into their corner. Maybe they would have profusely apologized. Maybe they would have just weathered the storm. Either way, nobody would feel really good about it.
Well, the apology would have been coerced. It would have been like Al-Qaeda, had some CNN film crew denounce America because they'd captured them in some rat hole in Tikrit. So I know that world, Dan. I'll explain it to you later after the show. I've been in country. The point is, who wants to forced apology either? That's unsatisfying.
Right, but that's sort of what our culture forces. It's what our culture expects these days. These sort of forced apologies, but it's not a real apology.
Right.
And the outrage mob never really subsides. They still hate you. They'll still try to cancel you. And so instead, we thought, okay, they were clearly making jokes aimed at conservatives. It was right before the election. That was obvious. That bias was obvious. But it wasn't necessarily as obvious that they also hate wounded veterans. Okay,
Right.
so maybe we can, even though he said it, maybe we can give some benefit of the doubt. And I went back to a phrase that I had gotten from a Harvard professor who was I did my master's, just no big deal. It's the Texas A&M of the East, just to be clear. And they started off the semester, and he says, while you're here, try hard not to offend others, and try even harder not to be offended. And I thought that was a really deep but simple way of putting it, given the atmosphere that we're in. And I think this professor was tapping into what we all understood to be true about college campuses these days. And that always stuck with me. That not much has stuck with me from that orientation, but that really stuck with me. And that's what I said. That was my statement at the time, and I thought it balanced it just right. And because we gave them that benefit of the doubt, they brought me on, and I got to go on, and America felt pretty good about it. And I'll say this. Because it's a great compliment to myself. But Steven Spielberg was in the back on that night on that show. He was I guess he was in town filming for something.
The night you came in.
The night that I was there. So they give him. It's a very small stage. I mean, honestly, it's not that much bigger than this. And they give him a little section on his own. He's got some cheese and crackers and wine and things. It's just for Steven Spielberg. And I got to talk to him after I did my set, and he gave me some pretty cool compliments. He said, you got great comedic timing. You're even funnier than Adam Carolla. And, you could have a real future in Hollywood. And I was like, that's awesome. But it was just me and him. There was nobody else listening. And I said, this is not good. I need witnesses. And my wife was somewhere across the stage, right, watching like Halsey perform or something, because she was the guest that night. And I was like, Tara, come over here. Tara, come over here. And I said, Mr. Spielberg, could you just go ahead and say what you just said again? And it was really awkward, but I don't care, because I got a witness. And my wife, who is here now, cannot deny that he did say this. I will say hi to my wife, Tara. I don't know where she's at, but there she is.
And then Dan says to Spielberg, you should make a war movie one of these days. I love all the E.T. shit, but make something gritty, like World War II, like Normandy, storming the beach, German pillboxes and machine guns. So yeah, let's talk a little. I always think about war because I think more about the location. I mean, obviously the parts where there are bullets flying and bad guys everywhere, that's a negative. But then there's also the environment. Like you see all those Vietnam Wars, and it's during torrential rain, monsoon season. Everyone's got leeches on the back of their neck, and they got the rot, the foot rot, and the mud and the stuff, and they're sleeping on the ground with Charlie Sheen, and it's a disaster. Then you see Saving Private Ryan, and they're going through the rolling hills of the French countryside, and you're like, well, you still got Germans shooting at you, but not too shabby other than that, you know what I mean?
What are they complaining about?
Yeah. some of the places you've been, and maybe it's just because I don't like dust. I hate dust. It feels weird. I want to shower off. And then the helicopter landings with all the dust flying everywhere.
The dust is what gets you, right?
Oh, yeah. It's
It's
brutal.
like you can deal with the IEDs to the face and everything, but what's the dust
It's the little
in
things.
your hair?
Yeah.
It is true.
I
You
mean,
know,
in the
after I got
heat-
blown up by the IED, that was one thing. But days later, there was still dust in my hair.
Now we're talking. Now you're on my page. That's
Well, it's
what I'm
true.
saying.
So annoying.
You ever see one of those camel spiders, one of those giant spiders, or
Actually never saw
scorpion,
those.
or something good and deadly in the
No.
desert? What's the
Honestly,
hottest?
no.
What's the hottest it's been for you?
Oh, it can get up to, and I think Iraq was hotter than Afghanistan. At least it felt that way to me. I was also blown up in June. I was blown up in June, so I left after that.
Oh,
And so I didn't.
Well,
I wasn't. I
was
think
that-
it gets a lot hotter in July and August. But
June is not the blowing up season there. You want to get blown up
Yeah.
in April or May.
Yeah. I mean, because it was getting warm. It was
Yeah.
getting warm. But you're looking at 130, 140 degrees. In Iraq, though, we always operated at night, so it's only like 115 degrees at night. it's so miserable.
And I mean, you're carrying 50 pounds. I mean,
Yeah.
you got the flak jackets on, helmets, water, provisions. I mean, so not only, now look, this may sound gay, but I fight in a Speedo. You could argue it may be the straightest endeavor of all time, but you're packed up. I mean, you're layered, and it's 115 degrees outside, right?
Yeah. I mean, you just kind of learn to deal with it. It's just uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, especially with the dust, as you mentioned.
Well,
And the dust, it gets in your teeth, in your
That's what I'm
eyes.
saying.
Yeah, but there are some places in Afghanistan that really are unbelievably beautiful. So it depends. We operated in Kandahar province mostly. About the southern area, that's this desert kind of moon dusty place that you're talking about. You go a little bit north, though, you're in these beautiful mountains. You're seeing these rivers come through it. Like we're in the wintertime, we were trudging through 3 feet of snow with these crazy mountains that you've just never seen anything like it. It's unbelievably beautiful. So we would think like, wow, we should start some adventure like tourism company.
You
here.
need a zip line.
Yeah. Zip line. No, you don't forget the zip line, man. You can take all these rich folks out. There's Taliban shooting at you. It's exciting. You can river raft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ultimate tough mudder.
Yeah, right.
This is a tough mudder.
Yeah.
You and your rich buddies can drive your Range Rover to the park and crawl on your elbows through some mud some guy hit with a hose. But have you been shot at with a Soviet rocket-propelled grenade?
Right. They're not that accurate. They're not.
That's what I'm saying.
It's the IEDs are much more worrisome. Yeah, because you never know where they're going to put these things in, because they're random. We were on this one mission where there was. It was truly out in the middle of nowhere, and
improvised explosive devices, right?
Right. As opposed to an IUD, which is
different.
My wife has a funny story about that. We have friends who would be like, Dan got hit by an IUD. That's how he lost his eye. It's just it's the wrong. That's not the right acronym.
Interuteral.
We don't have to.
Okay, we don't have to do it. Device, just in case. Okay.
A couple of buddies of mine, they actually sat on the just top of this random hilltop. Now, I guess it's not that random. There's a reason they sat there. There's a good view. It's a good fire position to take up while people are moving through the village below. It's a good point. And I guess Taliban, who had been there in the past, also knew it was a good point. And they sit down and they hear this like clack, and it's a small explosion, not a big one. Because any detonation needs to be set off by a smaller detonation. Mm-hmm. Just generally how explosives work. And they set off the smaller detonation, but it didn't set off the main charge. Thank God, because there was about 15 pounds of extra main charge there that could have killed them instead of just spooked them. It's crazy where they put these things. They're everywhere.
And it's they make them. Do they make them on the spot? Like, do they make them? Are these locally sourced, locally harvested, free range?
there's a big
devices.
made in Afghanistan movement.
Well, they farming them out to some Chinese factory, or they're all kind of making them at on the spot like a farmer's market.
It's more of a it's very
locally
very
sourced.
organic. You want to locally source this stuff because just like Made in USA movement here, they've got that. The Taliban have that as well in Afghanistan. So we call them little factories, but really they're just abandoned buildings, and they get in there. And these are very simple. So these are fertilizer compounds. They just put in there maybe 15 pounds of that. That's the explosive part. Some wires, some batteries, and some just wood panels. That's really all you need. It's
Can you imagine that the factory that makes the IEDs, like, that sign they have up, days since last accident? There must be a guy who never even gets off the A-frame ladder. Like, come on, Habib, get down. Nah, it's a waste of time. As soon as I get down, I got to go right back up again.
They have higher labor standards than you might think.
Really?
Yeah.
Is OSHA involved at all?
OSHA. It's a Taliban OSHA. They're very concerned about their safety.
They bury them in the ground, but they're remotely detonated often.
Depends.
Is that sometimes?
Depends. Sometimes. It's much easier to have them pressure plates.
Right.
So because all you need to do is basically have two wood panels wrapped in wire. When those two wires hit each other, it completes the circuit and blows it up. A remote, if it's command detonated, means there's a wire moving somewhere. That's much more dangerous for them because
they have to be in proximity.
I mean, they've got to be able to run away, or they got to be able to watch us. They much prefer the pressure plates.
The one that got you was one that your translator stepped on just in front of you, right?
Right. If I had stepped on it, I would have lost both my legs easily.
He lost all.
He lost all
both
of his
legs,
limbs.
both arms.
Both arms. Yeah. He was a smaller guy, so he was.
How far physically was he in front of you?
Probably right here. Probably this distance.
Why'd you have to jinx me, dude?
Yeah. Well.
Couldn't have specked out that guy. To point to me, now I'm going to step on something later.
You never know.
You never know.
You never
All
know.
right. So about 5-6 feet.
Yeah.
So you guys were socially distancing.
Yeah. There's a.
And
you know what's funny? The 6-foot rule has long been known to SEALs, and this is why. Because BUD students, so BUDS is SEAL training, right? It's the first 6 months. It's the crucible that we all go through.
Basic underwater demolition.
/ SEAL training, yes.
Right.
And so that's Hell Week, that's all that. And instructors there's a rule that students always have to stay 6 feet away from instructors. And the reason is because students are gross. They're
Right.
they are. They're gross. And they're covered in bacteria. They're going in and out of the ocean. The ocean's not that clean in Southern California because Tijuana is always dumping crap into it. It's a
I
bad
get
deal.
it, Republicans. Blame Mexico.
Yeah.
I get it. Crenshaw, you got your crowd here. But I want to tell you, my nanny, my gardener, my pool man, all from Mexico. So when I'm yelling at them what to do, I have a certain respect.
Oh, Jesus. Anyway, there's a lot of bacteria in the ocean. Because of Hollywood.
Not from Sweden. Sorry, go ahead.
And so you're covered in this stuff, and it does spread disease. Like it makes people sick. It's not like disease, but it makes people sick. And instructors are, they don't want any of that on them. And so you're always yelling at BUD students who are always running around the compound. And sometimes instructors will actually get close to students just to be like 6 feet.
Right.
Just like get away. And the students like, oh, I'm so sorry. And so we've long known the social distancing rule on patrol. You've got to be 6 feet, or way more than 6 feet, actually, because you don't want to be all bundled up and get hit with a rocket-propelled grenade.
But when you're talking about, in the book, going on patrol, and you're talking about in an area where there may be IEDs, which is everywhere, you guys actually walk in a line together to obviously literally minimize your footprint on that road, which obviously then makes it's a more dangerous configuration for combat.
Yeah, it's not a good tactical formation. If you want to be in a firefight with somebody, you want to be spread out. You want to have different maneuvering elements. The base of fire, a maneuvering element. It's not that complicated. But a line isn't so great. You only go in a line If you maybe you're going a long distance, we might, but even then we want to be staggered.
Right.
But we have to go on a line because one line is cleared, and you want to make sure you stay on that line. And that's just what you do.
So your interpreter's about 6 feet in front of you. He steps on this IED. It kills him, although not instantly.
No, not instantly. Yeah.
But he's very severely wounded, and then you get hit sort of everywhere, right?
Yeah, I was in this position, and all of a sudden I wasn't. And I don't believe I lost consciousness. If I did, it was only a split second. But it feels like you got hit with a truck, and a lot of people in that truck shot you with a shotgun and then poured Tabasco sauce all over you.
Wow.
That's sort of what because I was hit with the concussion of it, but it was mostly a fragmentation wound. So just from top to bottom.
And they put all sorts of nasty stuff in there to cause.
They did, yeah, because we were
damage.
pulling bolts out of my hands.
Bolts?
Yeah, like bolts and screws and things, and those aren't necessarily part of an IED. They probably added those things.
Let me tell you
A lot of
something about
rocks.
the bolts. I bet they were metric. Now, I like working
Yeah.
on cars. Standard is
Communist
SAE.
bolts.
That's made in America, my friend.
Right.
You did not
Right.
pull out any 3/8, half-inch, or 9/16. That shit was 7mm, 9mm. It's what the rest of the world uses to blow us up, and that ain't American-made. That
It's
much I'll
not.
tell you right now.
You know what they say? There's two types of countries. The ones that have won 2 world wars back to back, and the kinds with a metric system.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you remain conscious this entire time, at least to the best of your knowledge.
Right.
You know it's bad, but you don't know how bad it is, right?
No, I don't. I mean, I know I have my leg. The first thing I did was check my legs, and I had those, and so that's a good thing. I couldn't see. I never for a second assumed that my eyes were damaged. I don't know why I didn't assume that. I just didn't, and I just assumed there was dirt in them. It was a bit of self-deception, a very healthy self-deception, honestly, in hindsight, and that self-deception would continue for weeks, frankly. With changing from, okay, I'm not even hurt, to, okay, I'm hurt, but I'm easily going to see again, even though the doctors really did not think I would ever see again. And so I remember very vividly the actual experience. I remember talking to my good friend, a medic who came over, wrapped me up here, wrapped me up there. I complained about stomach pain. That was where the hardest hit seemed to be. I thought I had shrapnel shooting through my abdomen. It turned out not to be the case. I mean, it was badly peppered, but nothing went that deep. I mean, the worst wounds were just down here because that was the closest to the bomb. My face did not look good. I have very few pictures from this whole thing, but I do have a picture a week later. I mean, well afterwards, and my face it looks like I got shot in the face with a shotgun. That's basically what it looks like, and the rest of my body looks the same. But for the most part, I was able to actually get up by the end of it and just, and walk to the helo. It's called a helo, not a chopper. Only Arnold Schwarzenegger calls it a chopper. We always have to remind people of that.
Well, what is a chopper? Is anything a chopper?
Well,
A motorcycle's a chopper?
yeah.
But not a helo?
Technically, no.
No.
No. If anybody in the military ever says, hey, the chopper's here, everybody will make fun of them and say, oh, get to the chopper. That's what they'll say.
Right.
Just so you know.
So, like every military movie, see, here's the thing. I don't know much about the military, but I am a journeyman carpenter. So every time I watch a movie where the hero is a carpenter, I go, oh, that's so fake. Look at him. He's using a waffle-ended framing hammer when he should be using a finish hammer. Or, those movies like where they grab the framing gun and you hold it at the bad guy and they fire, Mel Gibson fires it. I'm like, the compressor's not even on. Come on. And you got to pull the safety back at the end, spring-loaded, fake. Oh. But every fifth movie is a military movie. See, for me, the carpentry movies are few and far between, but the military movies are every other weekend, and they're all ruined for you because they're calling the shit
They're getting a lot better. They're getting a lot better. All of these, there's a lot of SEAL movies that got made post-Bin Laden raid. They were all a little too good in a lot of cases where you're thinking, you're kind of giving away a little too much here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know what else I hate though is, when this still happens no matter what, where every time somebody points, and everybody will understand this because we're in Texas and everybody's a gun owner, or at least should be. Yeah. But when you draw your weapon, it doesn't make the slide action sound.
That drives me nuts.
Like, it doesn't.
It
and
drives
when
me
you're
nuts.
really serious, then it makes another, or maybe they cock it or something,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
It's like, that's just not, that's not what you do.
I'm a carpenter, not a gun guy, but that drives me insane. Just because you point it doesn't mean it's going to make another
Right. No,
noise.
now I'm really serious.
Also, I do like the one where they get about halfway into the warehouse, and then at some point the guy goes, it's like, hey, do that in the parking lot.
Come in prepared.
Yes,
Come in prepared.
You run through halfway a dark warehouse, and now you're doing this?
Yeah, if you were in a platoon and you heard a guy like racket,
right?
In the middle, you'd be like, "What? Were you not ready?"
Yes.
Like 5 minutes. We started 5 minutes ago. Like, what are you doing?
And it's not like racking the weapon is like one of those weird spring load timers in a sauna at a bad hotel where you have to do it again, right?
No. It doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way.
Crazy.
The one that's equally as bad as the every time I hold the gun, it makes a new noise one.
Yeah.
That drives me insane. But what drives me more insane is when the guy's wearing his toga and he pulls the knife out of his underpants and it goes shing. It's like,
you don't do that?
where's the shing coming from?
Yeah.
Where'd that sound come from?
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Turns out movies are fake.
I've tried to make them make that sound. It doesn't. You're right.
Doesn't make that sound.
It's very disappointing.
So I was thinking about you. I actually had a dream
you were.
about you. I did, yeah. It wasn't that gay. It was
weird.
kind of bi, really, is what it was. It wasn't
Was I wearing a
straight. I'm
toga
not going to
and
say
bring
it was
out a
straight.
knife? Was I-
But I was thinking, what is underneath your patch? Do you have a glass eye? Is it just kept there?
I've got a lot of glass eyes. So today, I usually wear the Trident eye.
Wow,
Yeah.
what is
You
that?
ever seen that? It's the Seal Trident.
Oh, the seal trident.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it's actually a 24 karat gold earring that is implanted into the prosthetic in this case. But I have 12 of these things.
And do you have any sponsorships like Pepsi, UPS,
It's a really good idea.
Gatorade? I mean, come
really
on,
good idea.
man. You're leaving money on the table.
It's true. Oh, there's so much on the table. I've got a bunch of different ones. I've unveiled a few of them. I've got one of them recently was the Gonzalez flag. So the come and take it flag. You ever seen that?
What's
It's a bit
the
of Texas
Gonzalez
history.
flag?
The
Sorry.
Gonzalez flag is it's the come and take it flag. Where we have the cannon. If you've seen that, it says the cannon, and then it says "Come and take it." And it's from the Battle of Gonzalez, with the start of the Revolution,
We have
Texas Revolution.
We have one in California that says, "Please tread on me," and it's a cockroach crying. It's a cockroach going, and then this huge boot worn by Gavin Newsom, and it's like that. And so we bring it out on
keep me
Veterans
safe.
Day.
Please tell me exactly what to do to stay safe.
That's right.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
So you have one for that.
Yeah, we got that one. And, the reason I wear the patch is, because, you can't tell what that is, even from this distance. So it's always an awkward kind of public thing to have the prosthetic eyes without the patch. The patch tells the story right away. So it's kind of like my public, private life, and also a little bit of a formal, informal wear. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you have all the different glass eyes. And, stop me if it gets too personal, but I was thinking about it,
And dreaming about it.
Yeah, my son has a retainer he puts in his mouth. Does it kind of pop in and pop
it's actually
out?
very similar to what, it's very similar to that, actually. Because so a lot of people think it's like a ball, because you watch Pirates of the Caribbean and the eye rolls down the deck and he's like, oh, and put that back in there, and it's made of wood, which really doesn't make any sense because the splintering would just be terrible. But you couldn't really do you couldn't do that. They put a permanent, I think, spherical object in there. They wrap the muscle around it, and then if I took it out, it would kind of just look like you're under your lips. That's sort of what it would look like your gums. And you just slip it in there. It's like shaped like this.
It's
So I can take it out. I can throw it at people.
It's shaped like a homecoming queen is waving to her gallery, and
exactly.
And when you go to the airport, do they want to take a peek under there?
No, I rarely. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I mean, well, it's a good question. How do they react? They don't really react. They're very polite. TSA is very polite. They've also gotten to know me by now. I'm flying so much.
Really? And so what is? And I just think I'm a big fan of Dan. I just sort of on to him recently, but I first got onto you on SNL, and then when the book came out, I was like listening to the book, and I thought, this is first politician I've really heard just talking straight pragmatism, just nuts and bolts. Here's how life works, no shortcuts. As one of your Buds instructors would say, your last easy day was yesterday, right? And really all the stuff that's been around, stoicism, the way to raise a family, the way to conduct yourself, pride and dignity and a sense of community. And for some reason, so many politicians have just drifted away from that, because I think it's just easier to kind of feed the kids the sugary, empty calorie cereal for breakfast and not be hassled by something that's actually nutritious and good for them. So I think the politicians are almost just sadly taking the cue from the constituency who doesn't really want to get up and do the work that needs to be done. But I'm hoping that in the right vessel, meaning you, that these messages, these tried and true messages could return. Because they're the only things that work.
Well, and that's how I...
Thank you. Why aren't you clapping, sir? Do you disagree with my pragmatism? There you go. Thank you. Sorry.
I like to describe my political philosophy that way. My political philosophy is conservative, and it's for... Fundamentally, it's things that work. It's things that have worked for a very long time. They don't always feel good. It's not always. It doesn't always feel like the most compassionate thing to say, but it is the right thing to say. And whether it's about our limiting principles, whether it's about the way we should govern, whether it's about the way we should treat people in our society, and just the way you would treat your own kids. You teach your kids that they're accountable. You teach their kids that their actions matter. You teach your kids that if they work hard, they'll get this. You teach your kids about fairness and sharing and how to treat others. And it strikes me as odd that some people would treat their kids that way because they love them. Doesn't matter if they're liberal or conservative, but they wouldn't treat the American people that way. And you would treat them totally differently. You would tell them that they're victims. You would tell them that they don't have control over their lives, that they're not accountable. And that seems very odd to me. And I think we should actually treat the American people like we love them.
Yes, like you love them. Right. I know that is the ultimate love. Being nice is not love. That is not love. Love is what you do with your kids. I always sort of look at it this way. So many of these politicians that are talking about, a lot of people can't get IDs, or they don't have access to checking accounts, or they don't have access to IDs and they can't vote. I'd go, what if your 17-year-old son announced that he couldn't travel with you to go on a family vacation to Maui because he didn't have access to an ID, or he didn't have access to a checking account? What would your answer be to that child? If the answer is, what are you talking about? March yourself down to the bank or do it online and get yourself an ID. Well, then if that's your answer for your child, then that's the answer for society. Hold on, why aren't you clap? Okay, good. I'm going to be watching you.
That's one of the more ridiculous arguments, isn't it? Like, well, a lot of people don't have IDs. First of all, to say that a bunch of minorities don't have IDs, that's racist, first of all.
Of course it's racist.
You're telling these people that they don't have IDs, and by the way, you go and ask them, they're like, of course we have IDs. What are you talking about?
Well, also, where I'm sort of coming from is if you are the politician and you are saying there's a lot of people that don't have access to IDs. First off, I don't like the word access. It's this notion of like, well, Hobby Lobby's denying their employees access to birth control. That's not denying you access to birth control. No. That's not supplying you with birth control. Hobby Lobby doesn't make you a sandwich for lunch either. That's them. Not them denying you lunch, it's them not giving you a BLT.
Yeah, it's a difference.
Why aren't you clapping? No. So, enough with the denied access. It drives me insane. Anyone can get an ID. Now, it may be more difficult for some than others. So if I'm talking to a politician and the politician says many people don't have access to IDs, I'm going to say, well, then where is your bookmobile that got converted to the ID mobile, which has DMV employees, and you can go to these underserved neighborhoods and you can sign people
let's
up,
solve that problem.
and you will solve that problem.
Right.
But they never go that route. They just announce there's a problem minus the solving.
Because an ID is important for so many things. And so if you actually believed that certain underserved communities didn't have access to IDs, you would think that the solution there would be to get them access to IDs, because it's not just voting that we would want them to have IDs for. It's, well, I don't know, life, right? Because that's just what you need in life. And so if people don't have an ID, it tells me that they are probably truly underserved and probably need some help. So let's get them IDs. Well, doesn't mean you don't change. It doesn't mean you change election laws. As a result.
Yes, if you in this modern era do not possess an ID as an adult, then you're not a functioning member of our society. It is impossible to function. So if I say these people need to vote, we should do it without IDs, well, that doesn't really solve any problems. All it does is lessen the barrier to vote. But once they voted, they're still now living a life that's ID-less. And if you're a politician and your real job is to get these people not to be disenfranchised, but to join society, pay their taxes, be able to travel, and all the things that go along with having an ID. If you were a sincere person, which I don't think you are, but if you were actually sincere, you would want to get them those IDs, not lower the barrier for voting.
Exactly. This is one of the only things that my Democrat colleagues want to deregulate. Right? They want to overregulate literally everything else, but not this one, and I find that strange.
Voting.
Right. And what else is strange is this need to, or this idea that we should mail everybody their ballot and do mail-in ballots because of coronavirus. Here's the thing. Okay, what takes less human interaction? Going to the grocery store or voting? Okay, so at the grocery store, you pick up all your things with your hands, and you put them on this little conveyor belt. Somebody else touches that thing with their hands, gives it to somebody else who touches it with their hands, puts it in a bag, gives it back to you, which you take home and you put in your mouth.
I'm never going to another grocery store, by the way. I don't know where you're heading with this, but you've ruined the shopping experience for this podcaster. Keep going. No, of course, Of course, if you can do that.
In voting, it's like, okay, you go in, you look at somebody, they check your ID, at least in Texas they do, and then you go touch a machine.
Right.
That's it.
That's it.
We can do that. Okay.
I agree.
It's not, come on.
I had, I was thinking about you. Well, I was only dreaming about you, but I was thinking about something.
A lot lately.
But it's a kind of unintended circumstances. So I'm at the hotel. I did a show here last night. We got out of here about 10 o'clock. We went to what's the local steak place? Papa's, whatever. Yeah, went there. Yeah. Oh, freedom, baby. Had surf and turf, couple martinis. Got back to the room at 12:30 at night. And this morning, I was kind of sleeping in a little. I got to do a show later tonight. And all I could hear all morning was people pulling their doors open and letting them go with the self-closer, with the pneumatic closer, ka-chunk. ka-chunk. So it's like the room to this side of me, the room to that side of me, and they fling the door open. It's got the pneumatic closer, and it's like chunk. Like we all know that sort of concussion of the door shutting on the metal frame because people are going in and out at 7:30 in the morning or 8 in the morning. And I thought to myself, why do we need that pneumatic closer? And the reason we need that pneumatic closer is for fire reasons, because a fire would not spread nearly as quickly if all the doors are closed. But then I thought to myself, who leaves their hotel room and forgets to close their door? Couldn't we trust?
I've done that.
You've done it? Yeah. Well, yeah, when you and your SEAL buddies. I am saying if you go to an old hotel in France, they do not have the pneumatic closer. You have to do it yourself, but here's a slippery slope. The more stuff that kind of gets done for you where you just don't have to think about it, like the more, every car's an automatic now and it all kind of parallel parks and everything, and every door is shut for you by the man. Maybe you start getting a little softer, like maybe you start tuning out.
Very soft. We're very soft.
Go ahead.
You go ahead. I'll go ahead.
I'm saying when you drive a car, you told me to go. If you drive a car with a stick shift, you are engaged in that car. Like when you drove an old car, you kind of had to be responsible. There was no texting and kind of drifting off now. And I worry that everything is kind of being done for everything's in the government as well, and we're kind of drifting off.
We're expecting more of it. We're expecting somebody to take care of us. This is through and through been noted in the coronavirus pandemic, and watching not just the United States but the world react to this notion that we can't even make decisions for ourselves, that if we feel unsafe, we should also tell other people that they should feel unsafe and that they shouldn't be able to go out. It's very strange, this very, very strange notion that if our governor says, hey, we're going to allow people to go back to work and allow them to do this, that he would get criticized as dumb and weak. That was from Beto today. Yeah, I mean, I'm quoting Beto on this one, and I'm in a big fight. I'm in a big Twitter fight with Beto today, and it was so interesting. And I'm like, what I said was this: I said, you're actually calling all Texans dumb and weak, because Governor Abbott is not forced. Did Governor Abbott force anybody here? Am I aware? Okay, I was just making sure. Did you guys get a letter from the governor that said you had to come here and put yourselves at potential risk? You're always risking your life when you leave the house, no matter what. But he didn't make you do it. You chose to do it. And there's an element of freedom there. There's an element of personal responsibility. I think we're a little bit more inclined to think of it that way in Texas than maybe in some other parts of the country. But the whole world has done this. First time in human history. First time in human history we've collectively really shut down this way, and it's interesting. And I hope we analyze it thoughtfully in hindsight and think about what we did right and what we did wrong, because we really have lost perspective. We really have, and about what is difficult. And and I talk about in my book. I'm like, I have ancestors that came. I'm a 6th generation Texan. My ancestors are coming to Texas. Sarah Howard was my first ancestor in Texas. She came here, she was kidnapped, her child was killed in front of her, she lost one husband, then lost another husband. They had to find water every day. And where do you find water every day in Texas?
And it was so much
summer. It's not that easy.
It was so much dustier back then than it is now. No, because we have asphalt.
You're thinking of the old West movies where there's just dust
dusty
everywhere.
Well, and she lost her kids, but I'm saying, but the dust, it didn't help.
It's not that dusty here.
It was so dusty back then.
It's very swampy in Houston.
I need a wet nap. I feel like there's dust on it.
You're thinking of like the Wild West of Arizona.
It's always tumbleweeds
West
and
Texas.
dust, and some of us have
Californians,
hay fever allergies.
They think we ride horses to work, which we should. Why don't we?
You're so sorry, Sarah, your great ancestor.
Right. And then what do we complain about? I get really pissed when I'm like flying. I'm barreling through the air at 30,000 miles per hour and the Wi-Fi's not working. And I'm like, my life is hard. This isn't fair. I'm oppressed.
I'm no military pilot, but you're probably not at 30,000 miles an hour.
30,000 feet, 30,000.
Right. He's broken the speed of light. That Southwest flight got from Texas to Burbank in 18 seconds.
Washington Post. Washington Post is going to fact check me.
No, I knew you meant 30,000 feet at 500 knots or so. I knew what you meant.
Special government plane. You don't know about it.
Well, nowadays, man, I don't know if you've seen some of that footage on Tucker Carlson, man.
Have you seen that? Yeah. I mean, America didn't even notice that there's UFOs now.
It's
I
crazy.
didn't even notice.
Well, here's my theory about UFOs. My theory is like we thought they were being hidden from us, so we wanted to know. Yeah. It's like we have the same relationship with UFOs as we had with Lance Bass, the singer from the boy band. We're like, I think that guy's gay, but he says he has a girlfriend. And it bugged the shit out of us. And then at some point he went, I'm gay. And we went, I knew it. And when we left.
Nobody cared anymore.
But that's what we did with UFOs.
That's a perfect analogy.
That's why I get the big bucks.
So, but this was incredible. I mean, there's Navy footage of these objects. There was a lot of analysis done. Have you ever heard the Joe Rogan podcast with the pilot?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not new news. So the last couple of months weren't the first time it came out. I think the Navy just declassified it officially, but it had long been out, and they didn't even try to hide it. You know, because they knew it was foolish to try and hide it. And you hear this guy on the Joe Rogan show, and I really recommend this episode. I don't know how to find it. He just put so many episodes out, but it's really interesting. Goes in real detail about how they analyzed this object. How many sensors they had on it, how they were filming it, what it looked like to them, why there was no rotor wash, there was no heat signature. It's very strange. All of it was very strange, and everybody's just like, yeah, but Tiger King's on, so
yeah. It's crazy that we've turned the page that fast. And my entire childhood was sort of based on there's UFOs, they're out there. Every third movie was a UFO movie, and now evidently they're here and we have no thoughts about it. But if they're listening and there are new overlords, you guys are going to need entertainment. This guy, he pushes a pencil all day. You need someone with carpentry skills. You need someone who can spread your message through entertainment, through comedy. I don't know if I assume you're listening. And there's going to be a few of us who you will spare because you will need us to help work on the others. Much like what Gavin Newsom is doing to California right now. You're going to need somebody who's doing it. Yeah, they're out there.
That's crazy. It's crazy. I'm excited about it, though. I don't think they need carpenters. I don't think you're as important to them as you might.
Well,
they have little tic-tac spaceships that don't have any rotor wash that can move 30,000 miles an hour. Actually,
right. But everyone
see at a slip of the tongue. Maybe
everyone needs countertops. Everyone needs storage. At some point, the aperture door for the spaceship is going to jam, and someone's going to have to squirt some WD-40 on that bad boy. And I'm just saying, I'm your man.
Do you carpenter? Is that how do you verb carpenter? Is it? Do you do wood making?
Yeah, I'm not.
Occasionally,
I wasn't a woodworker, but I was a carpenter, so I did it for a living.
Yeah, so you did it. I know you did it before, but do you still do it? Do you still?
Oh yeah. I always work on projects. Always working on projects at my own house. I have warehouses with cars in it. I'm constantly building studios, and I built my studio back in L.A. and all that kind of stuff. And now I got to rip everything out of the ground and drag it to Texas.
Yeah.
Set it up again. The way we're going to do this tonight is I was going to bring Dan out and talk to him for about an hour and then do 20 minutes of Adam Carolla's Unprepared. And in between, we have a couple of songs from a couple of artists who I enjoy, who guys I've enjoyed since I was a kid. Graham Parker and John Hyatt are a couple of guys. And they recorded songs and then sent them here just to be played for you guys tonight, and they just did it for us. So I think what we should do is give Dan Crenshaw a hand. I could do this for another hour, buddy. So.